Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. I want to say right up front, I'm going to talk about taking our turkeys to be butchered in this video. I'm not going to have any graphic descriptions or graphic images, but the subject matter may be upsetting for some people. And so I want to make sure if you want to click away and not watch this video, now is your time to maybe go watch one of my videos about harvesting persimmons or about dividing perennials instead of this video. But if you're interested in our reaction, our thoughts, and by our, I mean me and Ruth, to raising our own poultry for food, our own turkeys for the holiday table, and the emotions that has brought up as we have taken them to be processed, then hang tight. So some of you know that my eldest kid, Ruth, who's almost 20, and I raised turkeys this year. Actually, mostly Ruth raised turkeys this year. She really wanted to experiment with raising turkeys and to see if it was something that was doable and sustainable and feasible on a 1/4 acre plot. So obviously we are omnivores and we try really hard to be ethical omnivores. And so that has meant we don't want to eat factory farmed turkey. We don't want to eat turkey at the holidays when the bird has suffered its entire life. And the only way that we want to be able to consume that kind of meat is if we know that the turkey had a good and happy life, being able to exhibit all of its turkeyness and live a lovely free range life and have a clean and quick end. So for us, because the cost of pastured turkeys that you buy from local farmers can range from $130 to $160 a bird, it was prohibitive for us to buy them. Ruth really likes eating turkey. And so we tried to raise our own. What does it take to raise your own holiday turkeys? And do we have what it takes? Now, initially, we thought we'd be okay with butchering the birds ourselves because we've had to put down chickens and ducks in the past when they've been ill or injured and we've needed to cull them from the flock. It turned out that turkeys were an entirely different beast for many reasons. They're much larger. Our girl turkey was very aggressive. She was a jerk, you guys. She was not good to the other birds.
Scars on my hand.
Yeah, she drew blood every time you handled her. And we also had a big attachment to our boy turkey, French fry. And so we felt like this is something we want to hire out. So we just went to Harrington Poultry, and that is what he does. He raises and processes his poultry and is highly experienced, can give the birds the quickest, cleanest end, and then we'll process it for us. It did add to our final cost, but for us, we felt like that was worth it to pay a little bit more. The reality is if you are an omnivore, animals have to die for you to eat. And for us, in our pursuit of ethical omnivory, is that we want to feel those feelings. And if we are not okay with the grief that comes from eating animals, if we are not okay with owning those sad, upset feelings, then we shouldn't be eating meat. And we personally feel as a family that when you are eating factory farmed meat, a lot of that is hidden from you. You don't have to feel the discomfort of knowing that some other animal had to die so that you could eat your meal. And I think that honoring the way that we take care of animals, how we feel about animals, part of that is owning those feelings. And so for us, we don't want to eat factory farmed meat where we have no participation in the process whatsoever. We don't know what happens where it's out of sight, out of mind. We don't want that because that's not real. In permaculture, we want to see and know and own all of the connections. And if we are not okay with feeling the pain of having to butcher and eat an animal that we knew and we knew had a good life and that we enjoyed and we were attached to, we shouldn't be eating meat at all. So Ruth, do you want to talk for a minute? You want to hold the camera?
Oh, sure. So I've had several people tell me that raising meat turkeys is amoral and is something evil to do. And like, you shouldn't be doing this. If you cared about animals, then you wouldn't be killing your own animals, or you should just get one from the store. Like, that's so much nicer.
In fact, we had people tell us they would buy us like a butterball turkey from the store if we didn't butcher our turkeys. And not understanding that the whole problem for us is that we don't want to eat a butterball turkey because that turkey lived in a tiny cage and suffered its entire life. And that is much more ethically problematic for us than owning the feelings of putting down a bird that lived a really good, happy, free range life. And we knew that bird and had an emotional attachment to that bird. Because what it's really about is the welfare of the animal, not about our feelings. So what we're prioritizing in this process is the welfare of the animal. And that is going to come with sad and uncomfortable feelings for us.
To me, there's nothing evil about raising meat birds, because then I get to oversee how they're treated, and I make sure that there's no mistreatment. Even if I'm buying from like a local sustainable source, I don't necessarily know how that bird was treated. And the only evil thing to me would be to buy from a source that you know the bird was mistreated and unhappy its whole life.
I agree with that. So what do you feel about raising turkeys, having raised them from 1-day-old chicks all the way to we're going to pick them up this afternoon for holiday dinners?
Well, they're definitely more challenging than chickens and ducks. They have very big personalities, and when they are aggressive, they are quite aggressive. I was actually the girl turkey's favorite, but she still would just like attack me for no reason.
And she attacked the chickens. She was really, it was interesting to see her personality as a very aggressive bird. And French Fry being very passive.
Yeah. I feel like it wasn't so hard for me to say goodbye to her because she did actually kill one of our elderly chickens, a chicken named Violet that we had for like 13 years. She was not a nice lady. I am kind of sad about the boy turkey. He was very sweet, but he was mostly sweet to humans. He wasn't like having a drake or like a rooster. He didn't really want to protect the flock or care about them. He was kind of a coward, honestly.
So there was a post in like a backyard pollinator group the other day where the admin was talking about how she's being a vegan and like she's not going to eat turkey at the holidays, and how like turkeys, especially tom turkeys, are just like super sweet and cuddly and they basically want to be pets. I think that's really anthropomorphizing turkeys, because what a tom turkey wants to do is mate, and that's it. So he just wants to strut around, do his turkey dance, have, you know, some sexy times with girl turkey, and so he can be really chill. But that's because he's amorous, not because it wants to be your friend and he's a sweet pet. And so understanding what the turkey's actual behavior is, I think, is really important, that we don't anthropomorphize our turkeys or any of our livestock, and we understand what their behaviors actually mean. He was terrible at protecting the flock. If a hawk flew overhead, he was the first one to run and hide. He was not a protector at all. He just wanted to get it on with girl turkey, and that was his like laser focus all of the time. Yeah.
And recently he had started to try and flirt with the other members of the flock, like the really tiny ducks and the baby chicks. Well, they're not babies anymore, but they're still small. The teenage pullets.
And he had also taken to gobbling all the time. And we live in a neighborhood with other people. So I think when we first got turkeys, I talked about how quiet they were, and they're very quiet. Sexual maturity hits, and that boy is gobbling all day long. And that wasn't fair to our neighbors.
I have several very elderly ducks that like are kind of barely hanging on there. And every feeding time, he would just step on them because he didn't look where he was going, and he's so big and heavy. Yeah, we've bred them.
Even though he's a heritage breed, we've bred turkeys for meat production, not for instinctual survival, not for good flocking behavior. His job is just to mate and become dinner, and that's it. So, do you have any other thoughts, Ruth? Do you feel like this was really traumatic or hard for you, or do you feel like it was an easy process? Like, what feelings come up of having to do this? Do you feel like you would still want to eat meat in the future?
I'm definitely sad about it, especially the boy turkey. He was quite sweet, but I do know, I'm glad that they had a good life, and I feel like I have, like, more of appreciation for eating poultry, because we haven't raised our own meat birds before.
Just for eggs.
Even just raising them for eggs, I had more of an appreciation for the animal I was eating when I ate birds, but,
yeah. So I'm sure I will get flack on social media and continue to have people say, like, how could you do this? For us, raising our own meat birds, and anybody who raises their own livestock for consumption, I think it makes you less inclined to eat meat because you're no longer willing to eat animals. Now that you've raised an animal, now that we've raised turkeys, we see what they're like. We see how they naturally behave and how they should be given the opportunity to live. There is no way that I want to go back to ever getting a battery turkey, one that lived in a tiny cage in a dark environment, never saw the light of day, never got to scratch, and never got to forage and free range with a flock. I am not okay with that. I think it makes us more of an advocate for our livestock, more of an advocate for humane treatment. Once you have that connection, yes, I feel really sad today having concluded our relationship with our turkeys, but it makes me much more of an advocate to want to change the way that we raise and consume meat, the way that we subsidize factory farming. We are subsidizing with our tax dollars the suffering of animals. And to me, it just makes me more motivated to want to advocate for changes in the way that we raise and consume and think about food production in this country. I will eat less meat. We have found that when we started buying cow share, in general, we are now no longer willing to buy meat that we don't know where it comes from. And I know not everybody has that privilege. It is a luxury. It's a luxury to be able to raise your own turkeys. These turkeys are going to be much more expensive than the loss leaders in the grocery store at the holidays. But at the same time, we are absorbing more of the true cost. Our turkeys weren't subsidized by tax dollars. Our turkeys, we feel the sting in our pocketbook, and we feel the sting in our heart from having raised them ourselves. And I feel like if we're going to eat meat, we should be willing to experience that. We should be willing to own what the process really is instead of trying to hide from it. So I have to go take Ruth to German class, so I'm going to drive home. But I will be back later this week to talk about the cost breakdown, because I think it's really important when we talk about affordable meat production, what we're actually talking about, what our actual expenses were, what the hidden costs of industrial meat are, and whether you might want to consider raising your own livestock as well, your own turkeys in particular. So I'll be back really soon. Thanks for understanding, and thanks for watching along. I know a lot of my viewers are vegetarians, and I know that this probably stirs up a lot of feelings for you. It certainly did for me. I hope if anything can come out of this, it is that people will think more consciously about their choice to eat meat, what it really costs, what it really means, and what we want to do as a society in terms of taking care of our livestock and the welfare of our livestock. So I'll be back. Thanks.